Hello guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the group 4 with the member me, Abel Firoosh Albasith, and then Syaharani Hamidah, Mokhtar Arifin, Rafli Kurniawan, and Vina Septika. And today we will bring a topic for you all with the title Chapter 4 Reader, Viewer, and Popular Fiction. Here it is.
Chapter number 6 Readers, Viewers, Popular Fiction. According to Gans, criticizing popular culture or mass culture in the context of literature. It is recorded that people have done it for 200 years. However, there are still many scholars, students, and literary academics who are not familiar with how to criticize it. The audience or readers can be seen as ordering meaning or examined as a barometer of popular fiction, or criticized as elements that interfere with the impact of popular fiction. Even though they seem the same, the three things are different in the research of practice. In the difference, there are similarities, namely that the audience or readers of popular fiction function as a real-world reference construction that we can see in the terms of number one is to become reference to events that are described in popular fiction. Number two is become an indicator of the acceptance of fiction in society. Number three is become a cultural reference expressed in fiction. In relation to readers and audience, popular fiction can be placed into study. The first study is a literary context that focuses in the text analysis, and the second study is social or mass cultural context that focus on the analysis of the impact and reflection of popular fiction on readers or viewers. When looking at the theories that have developed in popular fiction research, there are two groups of thought. The first group is a group that considers popular fiction as the art, and the second group considers popular fiction as social function. There are two ideas underlay the why popular fiction research is conducted. The literature is valued because it is useful for human life. The literature expresses various human experiences so that humans become better in life. Literature is a good if it succeeds in showing the experience so that human can learn from that experience. Literature is not only value for its beauty value, but as a measure of the things that live in the soul of nation and measure the character of its people. Thus it can be concluded that popular fiction can be analyzed as a measure of living stuff in society.
I'm gonna talk about the reader response theory or the aesthetic theory. In the first paragraph, the reader response theory takes an opinion from Stanley Fish, which said the reader's activities are the focus of attention, where they are considered not as learning to meaning but as having meaning. Reader is an active element of communicating literary works through their interpretation. There is no wrong or right interpretation in the world of literature. Meaning exists because of the reader, not because of the series of meanings already available in the text. Let's move to the next paragraph. The aesthetic theory takes an opinion from Wolfgang Iser in his book, The Act of Reading, which said, reading is an activity that is guided by the text. This must be processed by the reader, who is then, in turn, affected by what he processes. This theory analyzes the relationship between the text, the reader, and their interactions. The aesthetic value of a text is not in the text, but in the reading process by the reader. A text offers a clue of what is being produced and not the product itself. Let's move to the third paragraph. The third paragraph tells that the beauty of literature located in the expression of the language, while the value of literature lies in the experience it tells of. Reading literature means experiencing the writer's experience. that teaches the reader something. Reading a newspaper is not a literature because the information or the knowledge inside is not given meaning by the journalist. Good aspect of life can be realized through literature because it is an art that demands the beauty and is useful to increase the knowledge about life. Language is the basic ingredient of literature. There is no literature without language. In the next paragraph, the purpose of reading popular fiction is to utilize knowledge, enrich spiritually, become a cultured human being, and learn to express something well. Novel contains knowledge that aims to utilize existing knowledge through experience on it, not to increase the knowledge. A cultured human is a person who is responsive to something noble and beautiful in his life, also appreciates and loves literary books so that he can always associate with the truth, beauty, and goodness. Final paragraph. Literary work have two poles. First, the artistic pole, which means the author's text, and the second is the aesthetic pole, which meaning the attainment of realization by the reader. Literary work stands between the two, not leaning to either one. Initially, the text had no meaning and no concrete. The text will be concrete if there is a dynamic interaction process by the reader.
Now I'll explain about reception theory. Research with this model focuses on the impact of the text on readers, such as whether it is happy or not, the impact of reading, not on the meaning of the text. Popular fiction is always fun to read because of its entertainment abilities, and that's an indicator of its success. According to Gans, the educational background of the readers can determine a person deciding to read a novel. Gans also said that different tastes in reading a story depends on a person's socioeconomic level. The reception study doesn't present itself but also with its theories. For example, a sociological study of taste and culture that question how people like a popular product and how people don't like it. Claude Levi-Strauss, Clifford Pierce, and Mary Douglas in anthropology and ethnography also research with structuralist and semiotic methods. This method provides assumption about the communication model that shows the participation of community members in cultural meaning. Then in the linguistic method, experts link the analyze with the level of understanding of the reader. So it can be said that history, sociology, ethnography, psychology, and linguistics contributes to the development of this reception study. In textual analysis, there is no such a thing as a right way of examining text. The absence of right wrong rules and examining text serve the expert to make interpretation and doesn't need to be validated by the readers or audience. The idea that popular fiction in media analysis is a way of seeing the power and influence of the media in society. This analysis requires sociological proof to explain the meaning of the influence of the text in society. The presence of popular fiction, which is very thick with readers or viewers, finally opens the way to study the cultural process as a whole, including the process of how literature is produced, accepted, and interpreted until it is finally recognized by the reader or audience. And lastly, reception study can also be said to be a research on the production of literary works with the object of study is to examine the interaction between readers and text or between the audience and the film. According to Fuller's study of the receptions, the text can be examined in five ways, namely one, examining the function or role of literature in society or social awareness. 2. Develop literary history as an institution. 3. Exploring the relationship between literary welfare and other forms of welfare. 4. Understand the role and psychological effects of fictional discourse. And lastly, 5. Provide a type of fiction and theory of the relationship between literature and other factors that reflect the reader's subjective experience.
Next, we have a third theory, namely psychoanalytic theory and popular fiction research. Sigmund Freud, the originator of the theory of psychoanalysis, revealed that there are three concepts of psychoanalysis. In the slide, there are three concepts of psychoanalysis by Sigmund Freud. First, psychoanalysis as a science studied in psychology. Second, psychoanalysis as a medical practice by psychoanalysts. Third, psychoanalysis as a tool in analyzing an anthropological literature and text applied by scientists in the humanities. Of three concepts, we will focus on that in the context of literary research or popular fiction. Psychoanalysis is considered a method. Its use can be seen from the various literary research practices that are separated by. First, psychoanalysis is used to explain literary relationships, actions, and motives, as well as the existence of the text itself. This is the method employed by Freud and developed by most psychoanalysts. Second, psychoanalysis as an aesthetic discourse in literary narrative structure. The approach applied here is as applied in semiotic discourse in the context of language. The basis used is the research, and the one being studied forms a literary construct. The nature of dream is used and associated with the field of fiction, structurally like a dream, irregular. Third, psychoanalysis is used in the narrative analysis itself. By analyzing story characters who have psychiatric disorders or analyzing psychological aspect of story characters. This approach is a thematic analysis, so that the analysis is more of an instructive analysis of the popular fiction text. Fourth, psychoanalysis is used as an approach in the context of historical, ideological, and cultural research. Here we study how and when psychologists emerge in cultural discourse. For example, analyzing literary through a feminist approach by examining the differences between men and women. These differences corner the position of women in certain positions. And last, psychoanalysis used in researching the process of literary creation. In this method, it is often applied in popular fiction research because in the process of creating popular fiction, like a novel or film it is a film, it is studied in terms of the production process rather than the reader or the audience. Applications of psychoanalysis in the Sigmund Freud's context of popular fiction. Actually, if we apply the application of psychoanalysis in the context of popular fiction developed by Freud, we will understand that psychoanalytic study in its relation to literature seems off track. Because that is true that psychoanalytic theory and its relationship with literature have been discussed in many books, but how to relate this the theory to fiction research can be said to be rare. Due to the existence of disciplinary boundaries between literary or film experts, in this case as a form of popular fiction, analysis underlies the emphasis on story writers, but in the other hand, popular writing tends to deny writers. From the chart, it is clear that the two appear to be opposite each other. On the next slide, which is Sigmund Freud ideas in developing study of psychoanalysis. Freud developed several ideas. First, the writer in writing literary works remember the past. It is based on Freud's writing entitled Creative Writing and Daydreaming and Family Romance in 1908. These works embody the wishes, the past, and in the end, Freud's writing fulfills its own desires. Second, Freud's interpretation of dream. Initially, Freud only wanted to interpret the dream contained in Jensen's short story entitled Grandiva. Then, Freud's intention to interpret is extended to the whole work. Freud saw an analogy that between popular fiction and dreams provides satisfaction that is not directly on the reader's desire when reading a popular novel. Third, the cultural background and the form of the work as a popular novel really determine the reader's desires and dreams so that they can influence the reader's perceptions.
Okay, next, three stages in the maturation process that form the ego. First is self-love and autoeroticism, and second, an attachment to loved objects, and the last is a surrender to the laws of necessity or reality. Next slide is application of psychoanalysis in the context of popular fiction by Jacques Lacan. The problem with the psychoanalytic approach in research can be grouped into three. First, the function of the imaginary. The original impetus in this area came from the analysis of children, which is offered to the attempts of researchers by access to the information of structures at the prefrontal level. Next, the concept of the libidinal object relation. Science it has renewed the idea or the process of the cure is surreptitiously altering the way which is conducted. Plus, the importance of countertransference and correlatively of the information of the analysis. In this instance, the emphasis has resulted from the difficult besetting the termination of the cure, rejoining those which arise when the didactic analysis of the candidate culminates in his introduction into the practice of analysis. Jacques seems to the parallel the literary and the anthropologist. When associated with popular fiction, Lacan shows three main factors. First is necessity, second is demand, and the third is desire. Next is application of the psychoanalysis in the context of popular fiction by Kaplan. Kaplan provides 6 aspects of the psychoanalysis that need to be understood in applying this method in literary studies. First, psychoanalysis as talking cure, and this aspect is divided into that is when the analysis is described exactly by a psychoanalyst who examines the patient is the imaginary relationship between the patient and the interpretation of the analysis. The other is a theory of human development. Second is psychoanalysis, which is used to explain literary relationship, action, motives, and presence of a text. Third is psychoanalysis as a structural aesthetic discourse. Fourth, psychoanalysis in narrative discourse used in literary or film. Researchers study it as a fictional theme. Fifth, psychoanalysis as a discourse on history, ideology, and culture. And this aspect is learned how and when psychoanalysis comes in. And the last is psychoanalysis as a process used by critics to see the text process and place the text in relation to the reader or audience. It's all from group 4. If there are any mistake, we are so sorry. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.